Amy Klobuchar. She is the ranking member of the Senate Agri-Pulse Committee. Senator Klobuchar came to Washington as senator 2 decades ago, 20 years ago. Unfortunately, she has decided to lead her state in a little different position. Come on up, Senator. I will just say this about Senator Klobuchar. She is, I think it is safe to say that one of the reasons she is such a prohibitive favorite to win her next race is because of the attention, in large part because of the attention she's paid to rural Minnesota and to agriculture over these 20 years.
Oh,
so
that's
welcome.
So nice. Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you, and thanks for having me. It's a spring day in Minnesota. This is like balmy summer, so I want to thank you, Phil, and everyone for being here. As you can imagine, we have a lot going on right now. I'm heading right from here to our leadership a meeting that we have. So there's negotiations going on, as you all know, on the funding of TSA and FEMA, as there's also negotiations on changes to standards for ICE. Minnesota was in the center of America's heartbreak over the last few months, but we were also at the center of America's hope and courage. So I care a lot about this issue, and I hope we're going to get to a good place. We've offered funding, everything, and allow ICE to continue to be funded as it was last summer, but so far that has not been accepted, that we would just simply fund the other parts of Homeland Security and continue negotiation on the reforms. But that is one idea out there. And we're also praying for our service members in the Mideast and innocent civilians. I actually Friday attended the funeral of a most extraordinary woman, Nicole Amor, who died in Kuwait with her husband, was there and spoke at his wife's funeral. I've never seen anything quite like this, with so many soldiers sobbing. And it was a stark reminder that decisions matter, and I am hopeful we can get to a resolution there as well. So I am excited to talk today about ag, because it's something, as Phil noted, near and dear to my heart. When I got to the Senate, I asked to be on the Senate Agriculture Committee. That was the one committee I asked to be on. When I started running for the U.S. Senate, I'd been the DA, the Hennepin County attorney in our biggest county. But I had some experience with farms because I grew up kind of on the edge of, at the time, a suburb, and all my friends had relatives that had farms. We'd ride our bikes out there, milk the cows, but I hadn't been involved in ag policy. And so I decided I would go and consult with Colin Peterson. Many of you may remember him. He was the long-standing House ranking Democrat or chair of the House committee. And I called him. I said, if I go up and meet with you, I'd like 5 Democratic opponents. Will you meet with me for 20 minutes? I still remember this. And I went up there, and I put all my countercyclical payment charts out. I'd memorized all this stuff to impress him. And he listened, and he goes, you know what? Farmers just want a fair shake. And, only 9 out of 10 people in this country really understand all this stuff. And 9 of them live in North Dakota. So that was my entry into ag, and I learned a lot from Colin and got on the ag committee and continued to do a lot of bipartisan work, particularly with Senator Thune in the conservation area, Senator Grassley on biofuels and the like, and I learned a lot from my colleagues as well. And so it has been really good to work with Chairman Boozman. He actually came out to Minnesota about a year ago or so and spent a day with our farm groups and everyone else. I always tease him about it because he had come with a coat on that was his work coat that you would wear to fancy events here and because he didn't go back to Arkansas. And as you know, no one is more down to earth than Boozman, who's actually a farmer. And he was there, and there were some old guys in the back of this farm. We were talking about equipment and precision agriculture. We had 200 people in the room. These old guys were laughing, and I thought, what do they think is so funny? What did I say wrong? They're sitting there by the donuts in the back. And when it all ended, I walked right into the fray. And I'm like, okay, what's so funny? What did I say that was wrong? They go, it wasn't you. You were great. It's that guy in his fancy coat, Mr. Fancy Pants. And I'm like, that is not John Boozman. So I go, he only had one coat he could wear. But together, he and I have ushered through bipartisan legislation, whole milk, the management of forests, the Fix Our Forest bill, there was a lot of different views on that, but I was glad we got it through the committee and hope we get the bill done. And also grain inspection, and of course, what has always been on our mind that we really want to get done is a bipartisan farm bill, especially right now. So I look at this first with the challenges that our farmers face right now. Margins tightening due to low prices and high input costs, extreme weather events, animal disease outbreaks, these ever-changing tariff policies. And it's more important than ever that while some of the work of the Farm Bill got done in the budget bill last summer, and I did actually some of my proposals were actually in that bill. Obviously, I had many other issues with that bill that I didn't like, but there were some really important things in there. And when we look at the opportunities in a farm bill as well, they are endless. We have got year-round E15 we could get done. We could do more on sustainable aviation fuel. When you look at what people are facing right now with gas prices, I stood up in our caucus the other day. I'm like, come on now. And most of them are in agreement on this. You can't have the opportunity to bring down prices and add more of a America-made fuel to our fuel supply when these gas prices are rocketing than have year-round E15. So I'm hopeful that the Republicans will work on that right now. We also have ways we can expand with local markets, and we have also the possibility of doing something on the RFS, the Renewable Fuel Standard. As you all know, that's a powerful tool to expand the availability and accessibility of biofuels. And beyond the RFS, it's long past time, as I noted, to make E15 year-round. The need for the domestic market, so extends beyond just corn and soybeans. Specialty crop and livestock producers also need domestic marketing opportunities. Boozman and I just did a hearing on this, the way we can expand these opportunities. And I was really frustrated to see the administration cancel awards for the local food purchasing assistant program. I think that is an example of a market expansion and things we can do differently. The tariffs. I hate the tariffs. Okay, let me be blunt. I brought a brewer to the State of the Union from Swing Barrel Brewing named Sean Severson as my guest to the State of the Union, and he charmed the entire Senate in the dinner that we have in front of the State of the Union by knowing like every brewery and there's towns and what the hops market was and the like. But he was there. He was very apolitical. His big excitement was to be sitting across from the men's hockey team. But he was apolitical, and what he cared about was the fact that this is increasing the cost of him doing business, that we've had trouble getting tourists from Canada because of these policies, not to mention the 51st state rhetoric, and that it's really hurting small businesses. They are literally roadkill. When you change these tariff policies over 100 times, it is really difficult when you don't have reserves and you just get by with tight margins regardless of what your business is. So I actually went to the Supreme Court argument. They somehow seated me in front of the comedian John Mulaney. It was fun. He's doing a sitcom on the Supreme Court just for this crowd and everyone listening. True story. That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true. That's what I heard. And he was there to do research. So anyway, I he sat behind me, and then Lutnick and Besson sat down the row, and I was enjoying myself every time Gorsuch, in that booming voice, would talk about how the statute, IEPA, was not to be used this way, and that the Constitution makes it clear that it's Congress's authority. I would look down at the Treasury Secretary and the Commerce Secretary. Of course, it's really solemn in there. You can't say anything, but I go. In any case, I predicted that they would be reversed. They were, and now the administration has come out with more tariffs. I've talked to our trade ambassador, who I respect about this. I just think we're going to be back in this again. There'll be challenges. It's possible they'll be upheld. It's a statute from 1974, and as you must know, it only lasts for 150 days when the tariffs take effect. So in Congress, we've had several successful efforts. I know that's not usually a beginning of a clause of a sentence you're used to, but several successful efforts to overturn the tariffs, but we certainly don't have the votes to overturn a veto. We know that, but I do find it interesting that this is one of the areas that we moved on. And I just think that trade wars have not been good for our ag when you go way, way back, and I hope there's a way they can work this out. Also, the USMCA negotiation and many of these other things that we could do to stabilize the market. I did want to mention one thing that's really on my mind right now, and that's the cost of fertilizer. Last month, as farmers began preparations for the spring planting season, fertilizer components like urea spiked 25%. Ammonia, phosphate, sulfate, and potassium have also sharply eroded what little profit margin exists on the farms this year. But producers know that the high cost of inputs is not just a recent problem. Since the 1980s, the number of companies producing ammonia has declined substantially. Today, 4 companies control more than 3/4 of the nitrogen fertilizer in the U.S., while potash and phosphate fertilizer markets are 100% controlled by these 4 companies. Some of you know I wrote a book called Antitrust shortly after the presidential campaign ended. One of my funnier moments of that was I had as one of my chief rivals, if you remember, my now friend Pete Buttigieg. Right when the presidential campaign ended, Pete came out with a book called Trust, and not to be outdone, 6 months later, I came out with Antitrust. In any case, that is true. The increased concentration in the fertilizer industry has put farmers in a really hard situation, and then, of course, you add with the Iran and what's happening with the Mideast right now, that has exponentially made things harder. So Leader Thune and I just introduced the Fertilizer Transparency Act, which would create a mandatory price reporting structure, providing wholesalers, retailers, and farmers of all sizes with comparable levels of market information on fertilizer costs, creating reasonable reporting requirements, which would help ensure that farmers can better access information about supply, about pricing, and market trends. I also introduced with Senator Marshall the Homegrown Fertilizer Act, which would create a grant and loan program to expand domestic fertilizer production and improve fertilizer storage capacity. And by strengthening the supply chaos that we're seeing to the supply chains at home, by making sure that we reduce the supply chaos and that we actually have stronger supply chains, we would be much better off. So if we do move on a farm bill, I'm very hopeful that we could include, there's a reason for this timing, include some of this in a farm bill. So what's happened? You know, the Ag Committee pushed out their bill and out in the House, and now that is headed to the floor. And so, of course, there's changes that Senate Democrats and I think a few Senate Republicans would like to see as well. We want to do more when it comes to conservation. Again, Thune and I, not name dropping, but we have some major changes that we think would be helpful on that front. So there's bipartisan things we could include in a Senate-based bill. And then, as you all know, the E15, which I mentioned, I just think nuts if we don't get this done one way or another. But the other thing would be those nutrition cuts that were passed on to the state. That part of the cuts which is billions and billions of dollars, really needs a delay for us to look at this policy, because what happened in order to get Lisa Murkowski's vote, which I appreciate her work on behalf of her state, the 10 states, and we'll see which states they are by June, with the highest error rates, got off scot-free. They don't have to have the shifts. The lowest error rates don't either. There's a couple of them. But the ones in the middle, which is the entire Midwest, red state, blue state, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, and also big states like Texas and California, get totally screwed, because we get the cost shift, and the high error rate states that have higher error rates than us get off from the cost shift. And to give you a sense, Florida is going to get off $1 billion, while Texas, that has a lower error rate than Florida, I'll use two kind of red states, has to pay over $1 billion a year. New York, which has a higher error rate than California, has to pay 1.3. New York gets off $1.2 billion, and California has to pay $1.5 billion by virtue of the fact that they have a better error rate. So that is a messed up policy, and I know why it was done, because that's how sausage gets made. But it is a reason to delay this, and Republican governors have joined Democratic governors in calling for the end of this. Or at least delaying what this policy is. And it's worth looking at that, because it is the craziest thing. So those are some of the reasons that I want to see a farm bill go through, in addition to the obvious what we're seeing of what's happened to our farmers. And we have disaster assistance that has to get out. Senator Slotkin and I led efforts calling on the USDA to move assistance out more quickly and ease the process for specialty crop growers. Farmers are now facing another planting season awaiting for the rest of the aid. So my commitment is to continue working with all of you to advocate for our farmers and our families and our communities. I want to thank you so much. It's an incredible those that are interested in this area, those that are in this area and care about it. I just keep telling my local farmers, including the one that told me this is a soybean farmer, as he saw his entire market dry up in China, this is a perfect storm of ugly. That's what he said to me. And I don't want to end with that sentence, but I think it best summarizes the challenges that everyone is seeing right now. And the only way we're going to get through it is together. And the only way we're going to get through it is if Congress stands up and does its job. And if people that are affected most by this really get out there and tell the truth about what's happening. I believe that we can make bipartisan agreements. I believe we can move this through. I hope that they take another policy when it comes to tariffs and trade agreements, so we'll be in a better position. But I just think this next 300 days, when you look at the decision I made, because I love my state, I love my job, but I love my state more. But these next days ahead for Congress is probably the most consequential for agriculture in rural America that we're ever going to see. So I will do everything I can to get something done to make sure that those kids that are growing up on those farms right now are going to keep in that tradition of farming that land, and those families that live in rural America and are just trying to be able to find a way to afford health care are going to be able to do it, and that we understand that not one size fits all when it comes to American families and people's lives, because kids that grow up in rural Minnesota and rural America should be able to live there. So let's move forward, because the market is endless for us internationally. It truly is. We are on the cusp of actually expansion, and I don't want these policies to hold us back. Thank you. Okay.
Well, thank you, Senator Klobuchar. I think we just heard some must-haves for the next farm bill. So it's great that the chairman of the Senate Agriculture Committee, Senator John Boozman, will be joining us now. Senator Boozman started his first term as chair of a year ago in January, and I would say he's had a rather eventful year or so. We're talking about passing another farm bill, but let's be real. We passed the guts of the farm bill last July in the form of the One Big Beautiful Bill. So with that, I'm going to allow Senator Boozman to come up. He's going to make a few remarks, and then I'm hoping he will join me for a few questions that we have. Thank you, Senator Boozman.
It's great to be with you all. Amy told me that she had told on me with the coat. I'm from Arkansas. I learned that it snows in May in Minnesota. So let me I want to read something because I don't want to leave out anything. You all are important, and I want to say the things that I mean to say rather than getting up here and mumbling around for 5 or 6 minutes. But I do appreciate all that you do. I really feel like you're unique to the news media in the sense that most of us now, because of the internet, the way we get our attention spans now, because of social media and all of these other things, we read headlines. And you're one of the few groups that people actually read your stuff from start to finish, because you represent and help represent to us what we're doing, things that are so important to so many people's livelihoods. So give yourselves a pat on the back. That really is a big deal. So thank you again for the invitation to speak, and thank those of you watching remotely for this engagement. I know you had a busy day full of many great speakers throughout the agriculture industry, and I'm grateful you're here to join this conversation. I'm following Amy Klobuchar. She's a great partner. She and I have done a lot of important things together, and besides being ranking chairman, whatever, she's actually a good friend who does a really good job. Before I begin my formal remarks, I would like to thank Sarah White for her longstanding leadership as an ag journalist. I value the reporting I read each day in Agri-Pulse. This reporting is strongly shaped by the work of another individual I'd like to recognize, Phil Brasher. Phil has been a constant. Phil has been a constant in ever-changing Washington. His reporting has always been fair and insightful. He still walks the halls of Congress and frequently grabs me as I make my way to votes or committee hearings. He's not bashful. Phil will be retiring soon, and I would like to thank him so much for his contribution to ag journalism. Learning the theme of this summit, mapping the future of market expansion for U.S. agriculture, I was encouraged that we are aligned in recognizing the importance of this issue. I think it's the number one issue, and the need to bring people in the industry together to have a dialogue. As you're aware, earlier this month, the Senate Ag Committee held its first hearing on the need to boost domestic demand of American-grown products. We need a long-term strategy, and it's my intent to continue exploring through this hearing that we had and others in the future about just that. It's clear to me, and I expect to you as well, that what we've been done in the past isn't working now. The world's changed. We need a different approach. We all agree that agriculture industry is under significant financial pressure. If you're growing something in the ground, you're losing money. Commodity prices are low, and input costs continue to be high, higher than ever. Right now, there are too many producers looking at their books and seeing that the numbers aren't adding up to their favor and ultimately deciding to leave farming. The clock is ticking. It just doesn't pencil out. We must take action to ensure farmers continue producing the safest, most affordable, abundant food supply of food in the world. And again, that's not just for me. Marco Rubio, while he was in the Senate, was a good friend. He always used to tell me, always tell him food security is national security. That was from the chair of the Intelligence Committee. That begins by thinking outside the box about how we can support our farmers, ranchers, and producers, not only by addressing urgent and immediate needs, but also by strengthening the industry for future generations, ensuring it remains viable, rewarding, and a profitable career. E15 is a good example of value-adding products and opening up new markets to increase the demand for corn. I'm hopeful that Congress will find a path forward that works for producers as well as the small and mid-sized refineries to get this across the finish line soon. Similarly, the Buying American Cotton Act would boost demand for cotton by encouraging retail investment in U.S.-grown cotton, and several other bills along that nature. The good news is there is bipartisan, bicameral support for these types of proposals. We have a reliable market here, and we must expand that. We can no longer depend on trading partners who are not dependable. In true spirit of the United States, we've shared our innovation and helped advance agriculture around the world. While our research has improved efficiency beyond our borders, it's also created new competition that puts our own farmers at a disadvantage. Domestic market development has to be part of the conversation to strengthen agriculture. This means discussions on policies both within and outside of the Ag Committee's jurisdiction. While we examine long-term solutions, we need something more immediate. We can be proud of the historic investments we delivered to rural America this last year. The Working Families Tax Cut modernizes the farm safety net, enhances risk management tools, and expands access to more affordable crop insurance. This is a win-win for farm families in rural America. But to help get our producers to October to realize these benefits, they need urgent assistance. I've worked with Senator Hoeven and Chair Thompson, Secretary Rollins, and many others to produce a proposal that built on the Farm Bridge Assistance Program announced by the White House last year. As challenges continue to mount, farm groups are calling for help. The American Farm Bureau Federation and more than 50 other agriculture groups sent a letter to President Trump last week outlining the need. It's critical that agriculture groups encourage their members to advocate with their senators and representatives about this important issue. The reason why there was success at the end of 2024 to include assistance for farmers in the funding package was the unified voice of ag producers and ag lenders nationwide who came to the nation's capital and explained to their members of Congress about the dire circumstances in farm country. Agriculture, when it sticks together, is an amazing force. Advocacy groups must continue to be vocal about the challenges facing rural America and share why the assistance is so necessary. Because of the urgency, the Iran supplemental would be an ideal vehicle to advance these essential resources. I've been committed to renewing the 2018 Farm Bill since it was enacted. As the ranking member and the chairman, I pursued opportunities at every turn to update this cornerstone law. As everyone in this room knows, I also am committed to our producers, and I emphasized what producers around the country shared with me, that we needed, quote, more farm in the Farm Bill. The good news is that we accomplished much of that in the Working Families Tax Cut bill last summer, as I mentioned earlier. I applaud the work of House Chair G.T. Thompson and his staff in reporting out a bipartisan bill. That was no easy task and truly an amazing accomplishment. The Senate should tie up the loose ends of the Farm Bill on our end, and that is my intent. The Senate needs a significant bipartisan consensus to be successful. We all have particular policies that we would like to see enacted. My framework contains the text of more than 100 bipartisan bills. There's a path forward if each side is willing to take it. Tomorrow is National Ag Day, and I want every hardworking farm family to know this: we hear you and we are fighting for you. Congress rarely works quickly. I understand how frustrating that it is, especially as planting season is upon us. Please don't mistake this delay as inaction. I'm committed to delivering the certainty and support producers need, because when farmers succeed, so does America. This is all about our farm community, but the farm community is rural America. Agriculture is about 25% of the GDP in Arkansas. That's what it is in many of our states. It's usually number one, number two. But if you get outside of any town of any size, agriculture is not 25% of the economy. It's 85 or 90% plus. So it is so very important for so many reasons that we do what we need to do now, but look into the future, see how we can value add our products so that we can get sustainability, not only for our farmers now, but for our children and grandchildren. My concern is, and it's been a real concern with specialty crops, we've lost so many producers in the last 20 years, probably about 80%. When you look at row crop producers, you see that trend, beginning, and if we're not careful, we're going to have the same result there, leading to so much consolidation in agriculture. So these are big issues. I appreciate you all and the great work that you do in getting the issues out, and it really is very, very helpful. So thank you very much. You got some easy questions for me?
Yeah.
Not like in the hall?
We do. There is a microphone.
Thank you. This is pretty nice.
Yeah. Well, let me, since you brought it up, let me ask you about Farm Bill. I would call it Farm Bill Part 2, because you've passed a Farm Bill last year. You did the really heavy lifting with the funding. But what is your what kind of timetable are you looking for? Are you going to wait until the House acts to see what happens there?
No, we are working with Senator Klobuchar, working with the members on the committee, working with the leadership in the Senate, and then also, very importantly, going ahead and almost pre-conferencing with GT, Congressman Thompson, who I served with in the House for many years. He's a dear friend, and so we're just trying to figure out where the hang-ups are going to be as we go forward. When you look at the Farm Bill, it really is amazing. You say Farm Bill, and really it's, so much of it's nutrition, but it's so broad. And especially now with so many people having such a difficult time, that you've got lots of ideas, you've got lots of farm groups, lots of outside groups with ideas and things. So we're trying to mesh that together. But to answer your question, we want to get it done as soon as possible. Weeks, not months and months.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about detail. I know you're in the process. You said you're in the process of working with the other side in the other chamber on this. Couple of issues that have come up. Obviously, have a lot of resistance from Democrats. The Proposition 12, the FIFRA preemption, the pesticide labeling issue. Will those be in the Senate bill?
I don't know. As you say, there is opposition in the Senate to that, and in the Senate we need, 60 votes. We need both sides to work together. So, my message has been, find me some others on the other side, that we can work with, and so far that's been difficult to do. So, we'll just have to wait and see. What we're not going to do. First of all, I'm very supportive of those issues. On the other hand, and we're going to work towards getting it done like Congressman Thompson did. On the other hand, we can't be in a position that we hold up the Farm Bill because we simply cannot get the votes to get that done. So we're going to work hard to try and accomplish it, but we're going to get a Farm Bill passed.
Yeah, your focus is on getting the 60 votes, doing what it takes.
My focus is for farmers to quit coming in and have to say, Senator, when are we going to get a farm bill done?
Well, Senator Klobuchar, I would assume the provision she's co-sponsoring with Senator Thune probably have a good chance of making it into the bill. But she also mentioned credit, and on the fertilizer transparency issue bill that they introduced last week. But another issue she mentioned was delaying the state cost share on SNAP. Where are you on that? Can you even, is that something you could live with?
No. So we discussed that as we did reconciliation. Right now it's where's my staff? What is it? $54? 58. Okay. When you look at the error rate, they don't even count it as an error if it's less than $58. The average recipient gets about how much? Around $200 a month. So you're eliminating 25% of the. You don't even count as an error if you're off 25%. So lots of states are doing a good job of that. We're committed to helping the states that aren't, but that needs to be cleaned up. We saw what happened in Minnesota when you play fast and loose with this stuff. There's no reason that a state can't fall within that group. The problem is that it costs like $17, $18 billion to do that, and I don't know where they can find that kind of money, for a delay of 2 years. Plus, it's not necessary. It's something that states can work hard and fall in line.
Okay. Now another issue.
The bill that you're referring to was with Senator Klobuchar and Senator Hoeven, had to do with getting the credit rates up to par now. In the sense that you go get a loan, your loan limit is so much less. That was done in 2018. The 2018 Farm Bill was based on 2012 data. The world is totally different now than it was in 2012. So we got to get things like that adjusted. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It's something, though, that those are things that really would help the farmer a lot as they plan and go forward.
Could I ask you about another issue that I hear about every day, literally every day, and that's year-round E15. Now,
welcome to the club.
Yeah, well, you've indicated that it's something that it's got to be a win for everybody, and you're concerned, obviously, about workers in Arkansas as well as farmers. Are we going to see a resolution on that? And number one, and number two, could that ride in the Farm Bill? It's Environment and Public Works Committee jurisdiction, but what are the prospects for that getting in a Farm Bill?
Yeah, it's important. For so long, Big Oil was neutral on this, and then I think last October they came out and said, all of a sudden, we're against year-round E15. We've had it in place now for the last several years. It was waived. And then they said, we're against it. And then they came out, not too long ago, a few months ago, and said, we're for it, but you've got to get rid of these small refineries. And I happen to have one in my state. It's the only refinery in my state that produces gasoline and jet fuel, things like that. It literally serves the entire southern part of our state, including the jet fuel for our airport in Little Rock. So it's a big deal. You get rid of it, you're losing some jobs, but you're literally losing the entire supply chain for South Arkansas, and our prices would go up. So I don't know what the deal is with the big refineries, and the little refineries, but that's not a good thing. It's not only my state. There's several states involved. Tennessee's involved, Wyoming's involved, Oklahoma. The list goes on and on. So there's, it's something that Big Oil cooked up. So we're very much in favor of getting E15 done. I'm very much in favor of the Fisher bill, that does that. but I'm not in favor of somehow the big oil refineries, forcing consolidation with the smaller one, especially during this time. So, but I think we can get that worked out. I really do. And the president, came out strongly. We'd asked him to come out in support of E15. He did, with the caveat, let's get E15 done, but let's take care. Let's get this small and medium refinery thing worked out.
Can it get in the Farm Bill?
Well, that's also a good question. I'm also on the Environment and Public Works Committee. Shelley Moore Capito does a tremendous job. What we need to do is get them to sign off on it. Mm-hmm. So we're talking to them, and certainly if it's humanly possible, so that we won't hear that question every day. Plus, what it would do for the farm community. If we can get that signed off, we would be glad to stick it in there, for sure. I think, though, that when we reach a deal, I know this is right at the top of Senator Thune's priorities. Senator Thune is leader of the Senate. He's also one of our most active members on the Ag Committee, and is very, very concerned about all of the topics that we're talking about today, which is a great help for us. He understands. He wants to get these things done, and is counting on us to push it forward.
Okay. I'm going to have to wrap up here, but I've got to ask you about the additional bridge assistance, the $15 billion. You indicated you'd like to see it in the Iran supplemental, but
I'd like to see it yesterday.
Yeah, but is there going to be Democratic support for that supplemental?
Well, in order to get it done, there will be, and I think they need to get it done.
Can you do it through reconciliation? Because Chairman Thompson today said he thought he could find offsets for it and therefore do it in reconciliation. Is that realistic in the Senate?
To be honest, I don't know. There's talk of that. I don't know about timetables or whatever. But I would say that especially, with the impact that Iran is having on the farmers with things like fertilizer, and then, too, so much driving that we do in rural America. I think urban America just doesn't understand how much driving goes on in rural America with equipment, but also just, you need a part. You don't just run down to, a mile or two away. You might have to drive 40 or 50 miles to get the part and come back or whatever. So for all of those reasons, I think it's a natural fit. If it's not that, it'll be something else. But we desperately need to get this done. And as I said earlier, we're working with USDA. They're, great on leading on this stuff. And so I think the good news is, as we've gone to Congress before, made the case because of the great work, really, and I'm not just saying this, people like you, getting the word out as to what the facts are, what we're dealing with, this generational crisis, that helps, the farmers understand the reason for it. And then it helps members understand. And because of that, we built tremendous support, and Congress has been, to their credit, Congress on both sides. These things shouldn't be about Democrats and Republicans, and traditionally haven't been. To their credit, Congress on both sides has stepped up and been very, very supportive of the packages that we put together.